Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for the Tech Guy is provided by Cachefly. CACHEFLY.com. Hi, this is Leo Laporte, and this is my fabulous Tech Guy podcast. This is the second show we did out of the new Tech Guy studios here at the Brick House, and this is episode 792. Enjoy. The Tech Guy podcast is brought to you by Netflix. Watch thousands of TV episodes and movies right there on your PC, Mac, iPad, iPhone, or TV instantly. All streamed directly to you, saving you time, money, and hassle. For your free 30-day trial, visit netflix.com/techguy. Well, a good day to you. Leo Laporte here, the Tech Guy. And it's time for Tech Talk from our brand new studios in Petaluma, California. The Tech Guy Labs have moved to the Brick House studios, and here we are. But you know what? The phone number hasn't changed. The website hasn't changed. Even the audio sounds the same. 8888 Ask Leo. That's the phone number. If you have a question, a comment, a suggestion, if you'd like to talk high-tech, I'd love to talk high-tech with you. 888-827-5536. That's toll-free from anywhere in the U.S. Outside the U.S., you can always use Skype or some. We actually had somebody from Belgium yesterday using some other kind of VoIP. So I'll leave it to you, whatever VoIP system, voice over the internet system you want to use. You can just call us, and since it's a toll-free number in the U.S., I think most of them are free to use. Do you see this? This is interesting. Foxconn, which is a big company in mainland China that makes all the iPods, all the iPhones. I think they make all the Macs. They make a ton of different products for the electronics industry in the U.S. And they have millions of workers. It's a big, big enterprise. It's actually based out of Taiwan, but their biggest factory is in Shenzhen, China. That's where all the Apple stuff is made. They say they're going to replace some of their workers, I don't know how many, some of their workers with robots over the next 3 years. In fact, 1 million robots. What? Okay, I don't know. Have you read I, Robot, the science fiction book about the robots taking over? I think maybe we should start to worry. 1 million. So the interesting thing is that one of the reasons we make everything in China is because it's so cheap, because humans are cheap there. Well, apparently, they're not as cheap as we would like them to be. Notice I said we would like them to be. So they plan on hiring something even cheaper. Robots. You don't have to feed them. You don't have to give them living quarters, which is how they work in Shenzhen, by the way. They actually live in dormitories, the thousands, hundreds of thousands of workers there. The company currently has 10,000 robots, a mere 10,000 robots. They're going to do 300,000 next year, 1 million by 2015. The company employs 1.2 million people. Of that, 1 million are on the Chinese mainland, but they're too expensive. Now, when I say we, I say that intentionally. You might say, well, no, that's Foxconn that says they're too expensive. Well, Foxconn probably wants to cut costs because Apple's putting pressure on them to cut costs. And who's putting pressure on Apple to cut costs? People, I think, forget. Maybe they don't. You know, we always complain, oh, all these jobs moving offshore. In fact, there's a move afoot in Congress to make all sorts of penalties for moving jobs offshore. But why do you think it's so cheap to buy consumer electronics? Remember about 10 years ago, the computer that you wanted, the perfect computer, was about $2,500. Now it's under $1,000. That same powerful computer that, you know, that's like the sweet spot. Well, how do you get it so inexpensive? Well, there are a few things happening. Admittedly, one of the things that's the miracle of the technology revolution is that chips get smaller. They're able to pack more transistors on a chip. They're able to put more power in a product that has the same cost. So some of it certainly is The technology makes it cheaper. But some of it also is, and I'd be curious at what percentage of it is, that we are making it in places where it is very cheap to hire the labor. Try and buy an American-made laptop or an American-made cell phone or an American-made anything with electronics. You can't. There's a reason for that. It's not because they make them better in China. It's because they make them cheaper. And now even cheaper still with robots. I can imagine a day where they go to Congress and they say, okay, not only are we going to legislate against manufacture overseas, no robot manufacture. That's putting humans out of work. 1 million robots. Isn't that sounds kind of creepy. Big brouhaha going on in the tech world over a company called Airbnb. You know them, right? Airbnb. Maybe you don't. It's a website, AIRBNB, as in bed and breakfast.com. It's kind of a cool idea. Airbnb allows you to go online and they say find a place to stay, but it's not in a hotel. That's what's different. By the way, the venture capitalists love this. They're pumping money into it. They're investing like crazy. Some venture capitalists have even said this is the next Facebook. This is so big. Airbnb, you go in there and you find real people who are renting their homes. So the big brouhaha is, well, a woman in San Francisco rented her home through Airbnb to somebody who ransacked it and burglarized her. We don't know her real identity. She's a blogger as well as a corporate event planner. She said she rented out a place to somebody on Airbnb. When she came back a week later, she was to an apartment she no longer recognized. Her home had been burglarized, vandalized, and thoroughly trashed by a traveler I connected with via the online rental agency Airbnb. So what is the responsibility of Airbnb? I guess, if you think about it, renting your home out to a stranger you've never met is a lot of trust. It's kind of a scary idea, in fact. But it's funny. I think that the tech community feels like a community. It doesn't feel like it's everybody. And I think people use Airbnb. They kind of think, oh, this is. I know many people who use it to rent, not to rent out their places, but to rent other people's places. My friend Sarah, when she goes to Paris, she goes on Airbnb. She found a great place, lots cheaper than a hotel. Airbnb on Monday raised $112 million. There's been speculation that they kind of wanted to suppress this story before they raised their money. In fact, that's what the woman, we'll call her EJ, says. She says they didn't help me. They tried to bury this because they were trying to raise money. They didn't want attention, so she blogged about it. Airbnb says in their statement, trust and safety are our highest priorities, and as such, the improved safety processes are being implemented immediately and will roll out in the coming days, weeks, and months. They say they helped her. In fact, they helped police. The San Francisco police apparently have somebody arrested. I think, if you think about it, if you rent something from a company like Airbnb, presumably they know who you are. So it wouldn't be too hard for them to hand that information over to the police. San Francisco PD said that on it looks like June 28th, I guess this was last month, they conducted a search of a premise in Belmont, California. 2 people were arrested but released pending further investigation. Some of the items taken in the theft were revealed. Then they finally arrested a woman, 19-year-old woman in San Francisco. She was booked on possession of stolen property and fraud. So it seems like a happy ending there. But it's been a big fight in the tech industry. Some people said Airbnb lied. The EJ said they didn't take care of me. It seems to me if you rent something to a stranger online, who's responsible there? I don't know. Certainly buyer beware. And finally, before we take the break and go to your phone calls, I just want to raise this issue. A proposed law designed to fight, and you'll always see this, child pornography. That's the easiest thing. If you want you want to invade people's privacy, say, well, it's to fight child pornography. That's, nobody's going to say, oh, I don't like that. The law would require internet service providers to keep a year's worth of your information. I'll give you the information about that when we return. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. 8888 Ask Leo. SOSs, that's what we take here. People who have trouble with their computing. Something not working, that's what I'm here to help you with. Let me just finish this, and we'll get to the phones. So this comes from our friends at the Electronic Frontier Foundation, who fight hard, I think, to protect us online, to give us the information we need about what's going on in Congress and other places. And they even go in, frankly, they even go into court and they'll sue. That's really their primary function. So the idea here is that your internet service provider, who knows everything, I talked about this yesterday, know everything about what you do online, right? They know where you go, who you see, what you buy, because everything goes through them. People are worried about Google. Forget Google. Who knows more about you than your internet service provider? In fact, it's even possible for them to see into your encrypted stuff. They don't usually. And you could, if you knew what to look for, you could tell. Your boss probably does that. But usually internet service providers don't look into encrypted traffic. Nevertheless, they could. So they'll keep 12 months logs, and this is what the law asks of customers: names, credit card information, and other identifying information. I presume that includes network addresses, street address, and so forth, so that law enforcement can contact the internet service provider and say, hey, who was that pirated that movie the other day? This is H.R. 1981. It passed through the House Judiciary Committee on Thursday. It really is. They always use, look, I don't support child pornography, but that's why they attach that phrase to anything like this. Because, well, who could fight it? Oh, you must be for child pornography if you don't like this idea. No, but this isn't about child pornography. This is, I guarantee you, this is about being able to follow what you do online. And if you do something that, let's say, the record industry or the movie industry doesn't like, that they can catch you. Because the problem is right now, when you are online and you go to a website, all that website really knows is your internet address. Your 192.168.1.1, whatever that address is, your 24.0.3.10. That they know. But in order to know who you are, they'd have to tie that internet address to who was using that address at that date and time. Well, who knows that? Oh, okay. Your internet service provider. So if there were a simple process where a company could go to, let's say, a portal provided by the internet service provider in which you enter the IP address and then it spits out your name and address, well, it'd be very easy to catch people doing bad things online. Well, that's what we're talking about. Well, you say, wait a minute, that would never happen. What about due process? Well, guess what? AT&T, T-Mobile, Sprint, and Verizon have exactly such a portal for law enforcement to go to. They don't need a warrant. They sign into the portal, pay a couple of bucks, and they can get your exact location right now. Your name, address, exact location right now. It's called a pen register. And that's what I really worry about. The director of the Project and Freedom, Security, and Technology at the Center for Democracy and Technology says the bill isn't going to help catch child pornographers. He says government and law enforcement entities will use the data to investigate things like drug activity, intelligence investigations. I'm going to add piracy to the list. Internet service providers don't want to do it. It's a burden to them. And by the way, T-Mobile, AT&T, Sprint, and Verizon, they're also included. They're internet service providers. Of course they are. They'd have to keep 1 year of everything you do online. Not sure this is such a good idea. You might want to write your member of Congress, your Congress critter, as we call them, about H.R. 1981 and say, stop, stop. Kevin, Tampa, Florida, you're first. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Hi, Kevin.
Hey, Leo, how are you?
I'm great. Welcome.
It's a pleasure to talk to you. Congratulations on your brick house.
Yeah, the new studios are beautiful, aren't they? We're
Yes, it is.
we're still working it out. I had to push so many buttons when I came in to figure out what's going on here, what's this, what's that. But we'll figure it out. It's pretty cool, I have to say.
Working on it. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
My question, have my own little podcast here with my wife, and trying to take phone calls as we do it live. And I've kind of wired some stuff together myself, and I get a hum and I get a buzz, but I don't have an Axia board to do this with.
Yeah, I kind of have a fancy system, don't I?
Yeah, I'm in love with the Axia stuff I was reading.
Yeah, that's from Telos. Telos actually makes the other thing that radio stations use called a phone hybrid. So the issue is you can go to Radio Shack and buy a phone tap. That's probably what you did, right?
No, I just took the end that goes to the receiver of my phone, I cut it off, and I figured out which wires was mic, which one was the receiver.
Wow.
Ran one to the output of the board and one to the input. And I did this once before, and I had to ground something and do this.
That's right. So there's a couple of issues. There's grounds, and you can tell if you're getting AC or into it because that's what that buzz is.
Right.
That's the AC going into there. But there's more. But there's other stuff that's getting in too. There's RF that's getting in if it's not properly shielded, and because this is what we call an unbalanced connection. That means it's not grounded, and so that's why usually the best way to do this is buy a phone tap. Radio Shack sells them cheap, and then it's a pretty simple thing to do. So this is cool. So tell me about the podcast. It's you and your wife.
Right. Well, for right now, that's the one. I kind of was going after what you did with the TWiT. Ours was Extreme93.com. And then on top of that, like the first show that we've ever had is K8 and Kevin. And it's on like
great.
Ustream.
That's great.
I'm trying to get it on Justin TV.
Now, is there some reason you use a telephone instead of, let's say, Skype?
Just so people can be able to screen the calls before they come in. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I guess it
So you work at a radio station?
I was a big radio geek when I was a kid. I used to hang out on radio stations a lot when I was a kid. So I love
then you know, like, for instance, right now, I don't know, Nathan, is he on a Gentner box or a Telos box? Those are the two big companies that make these interfaces, and I can't remember what we use for this show. I think it's a Gentner. But anyway, that's a hybrid, and so it solves a couple of problems. For instance, telephone conversations are not full duplex. So you notice that you and I can't talk at the same time. It seems like we're doing so because the hybrid is digital. It's very smart. It switches back and forth faster than you can tell. So that's one thing a digital hybrid does that you can't do with a phone tap. There's a lot of advantages, but those things are expensive. I did a company called JK Audio. I mean, if you're serious about this, when I first, now it's overkill what I do right now. But when I first started out, I was just like you. I was just doing this with stuff I had lying around. And JK Audio makes, for under $200, a telephone hybrid, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah. It will let you connect to a telephone. It gets rid of all that buzz. They make a variety of things. If you look for JK Audio, you'll find a variety of different products that they make.
JK Audio, okay.
Yeah, they're specifically for this. They're kind of lower cost devices for hooking up to the phone.
Okay. Yeah, see here on the screen here.
Yeah, but I have to say Skype is a really good choice for a lot of people. It's kind of what I use, used for years, and you get a little bit better quality. You hear when somebody calls us on Skype, it sounds great. Hey, good luck with your podcast. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Scott Wilkinson coming up.
You say, why does everything I do confound you? You say,
Leo Laporte, the tech guy, 8888 Ask Leo. We're having a little technical difficulty with Scott Wilkinson. We'll get him up as soon as we can to talk home theater. Why don't you get him on Skype? We know Skype works. 8888 Ask Leo. That's my phone number if you want to talk about tech. Will in Boston. Hey, Will. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Hi, Will.
Hello.
Welcome to the show. What can I do for you?
Hello.
Yes. Hi, Will.
This is Leo.
No, it's somebody else. I'm going to hang up on him. I can't deal with that. No, it's Ted. Hey, Victor in Hamilton, Ontario. Hey, Victor. Leo Laporte, the tech guy.
Hello?
Are we having technical difficulties, Nathan?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, okay, good. Hi, Victor.
Oh, hi. Wait, well, it's great to hear from you. I've been calling from Canada because I used to watch you with Lab with Leo.
With the beautiful Amber MacArthur.
Yeah, great,
Yeah.
great memories.
Yeah.
Well, it's a question, Leo. This is my first time. We're going on vacation with the family, so I've been looking at I want to get a new digital camera because I have an old camera now. And I know that I'm looking at those. I know now these cameras with ultra zooms that they come with like 36.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. People keep asking me about those, and I think they're selling people a bill of goods with ultra zoom. Because you cannot hold a 36 times zoom steady in your hands.
Okay.
So people have this notion, wow, I'll be able to zoom all the way into the soccer game, and I'll be able to see little Tommy's face as he kicks that goal. You'll see a blurred smudge. It'll look like a thumb.
Yeah.
Because the quality is just not that good. So I think that it's hard unless you're going to put it on a tripod. If you're willing to put it on a tripod, 36x zoom is fine. But otherwise, I would say 4x, 5x. They make 10x and 11x. 36x, is that optical zoom? Does it say 36 times optical zoom?
Yeah. For instance,
Wow.
like the Canon SX30IS, which says it's 35 optical zoom.
Wow. Now, the IS is a good sign because IS means image stabilization.
Yeah, for the Canon.
And you'd need a lot of image stabilization for a 36x zoom.
Yeah.
Now, the other side effect, and you'll notice this if you look at the camera itself, the other side effect is in order to have a zoom of that length, you've got to have a lens that can go whoop, whoop. You can't zoom like that without a big extended lens. So there's in no way is this a pocket camera.
No, it's not. No.
Yeah. But as long as you understand that, maybe with if 35x wide angle optical zoom lens, that is amazing. That is really
Yeah, I'm
amazing.
looking for a camera where now they come with with HD video and then with that, so I'm trying to bundle it right instead of getting an extra camcorder.
Yeah. Well, that's certainly the case. I would not, nowadays, don't get a camcorder. Almost any digital camera you get will have at least 720p high-def video. You want to look for 720p, 60 frames a second or 30 frames a second. But so otherwise, any slower, it's going to seem a little stuttery. But if you've got 720p, 30 frames, you're shooting any video quite as good as any camcorder in a much more compact package. It also encourages you, and I think this is nice. A camcorder. We've all done this. You press record and you roll for 10 minutes, right?
Oh, okay.
Nobody wants that. So having it in a point and shoot is great because it encourages you to do what you should do, which is just 10 seconds, 20 seconds at a time, little snippets, which you can then stitch together with your stills. It really is the right way to do video. So I absolutely think you're on the right track in that regard. Why do you want 35x? What are you shooting? Are you shooting sports?
Well, I want a camera that eventually, like, I have my kids, so eventually I'm going on vacation, but eventually, yes, I will, when I'm going to their soccer match or, just in general. But it's not necessarily a need, but I
guess it doesn't hurt to have it. Let me see what DP Review says. This is there are a couple of sites I like. The digitalcamerainfo.com and dpreview.com are good review sites for this kind of stuff. Everybody says pioneering. We've never seen so much zoom in a single, in a point and shoot camera and all of that stuff. And that's true. I mean, we're talking about an amazing thing. Canon makes great cameras. I'm not an anti-Canon guy by any sense. In fact, I use Canon SLRs, and I highly recommend using Canon point and shoots. I'm a big fan of them. I'd like to see, it's got zoom framing assist function, keeps track of distance. This might be all right. The IS is critical. You're going to see, when you buy it, you're going to see that if you do zoom that far, a couple of things. First of all, it has to be in bright daylight because when you zoom out that far, it lowers the aperture. And you're going to probably want a tripod so that you can hold it steady. But I have to say, this is impressive. It does 720p, 30 frames a second. That's what you want, 1280 by 720. So it's got good video quality. I like it that it's a 24 millimeter when it's zoomed all the way in. That's a nice wide angle, and I do like that. Yeah. But get this, just so for people who are camera nuts, so that they understand what we're talking about. A 35x zoom is equivalent of an 840 millimeter lens.
Yeah.
Now I have a 200 millimeter lens. It's a foot long, on my SLR, and I've used an extender to double that to 400 millimeters, and I almost always use a tripod for that. 800 millimeters?
Yeah.
You'd be able to see the pupil of your kid's eye 100 yards away. So, but the good news is you don't have to shoot that far out. You're not required to use 800. So I guess it's nice if you can put the camera on a wall, if you can put it on a tripod. You know, what I do for sports photography when I am using that long lens, I put it on a monopod, which is just a single pole. And you'll see a lot of sports photographers doing that because you can still move around a lot, but it's much steadier than if you're hand holding it. This looks like a nice camera. I haven't played with it, but it looks like a very nice camera. I know Canon does good stuff. It's a good price. It's under $400, which is a great deal. You know, I give it my tentative recommendation only because I haven't used it.
Exactly. Okay.
But it sounds pretty good.
In the market, there's several that are competing.
Oh, yeah. But Canon's great. They have good image stabilization, so the IS is good. I'm going to ask the chat room because they're a great source for this. We're talking about the SX30 IS. And Uncle Bic 2 says he has one and he loves it. He loves it. I have to tell you, if you were going to buy a 800 millimeter, I don't even know if you can buy an 800 millimeter lens for a digital SLR, but if you could, it'd be tens of thousands of dollars. What is the time limit on recording? How long can you record? I think anything more than a minute, you're fine. You really want to get in the habit of, this is just good advice for anybody who's shooting video, but the pros don't shoot 5 minutes of video and then pick out the best 30 seconds. They'll shoot, stop, shoot, stop. Even if it's a soccer game, you'll shoot, stop, shoot, stop. Mostly because ultimately what you want to do is edit that anyway. Look at a movie. You never sit on a shot in TVs or movies for more than 5 or 6 seconds, right? So a 30-minute video of the kid playing soccer is going to make you seasick. So just remember that, Victor. I think this is a good camera. I give it my recommendation. What is it in Canadian dollars?
I checked. It's only about, I believe it's about $450 or $429.
That's a great price. A lot of times they jack it up more than they have to for Canadian.
Yeah.
That's a great price.
Pretty high right now.
Yeah. Uncle Bic says 10-minute limit in shooting. That's plenty. That means you can shoot 10 minutes, stop, and start again. That's plenty.
Okay.
Victor, enjoy. I think that sounds like a great camera.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm going on vacation soon, in a couple of weeks, and I'm not going for a digital SLR, so I'm thinking of something just below that. So I wasn't sure.
Right. No, it sounds like a great choice. It's kind of you're right. It's like halfway to a digital SLR. Thanks for the call, Victor. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. We'll see if we can get Scott Wilkinson right after this. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Scott Wilkinson is the home theater guy. We got him on the line right now. Hey, Scott.
Hey, Leo. The pains of new studio-ness, I know.
Yeah, we're working on it. You sound okay here. Can you hear me all right and everything?
I can, absolutely.
No echo, no reverb, nothing?
Nope,
no
everything's
auto-tune.
cool.
Did you see Rebecca Black's new video is out, speaking of auto-tune?
Oh, really?
Yeah, she's the one who did that song, Friday, Friday, comes after Saturday, or whatever it was.
Oh, that's what everybody in the chat room is saying. Sing Friday,
Yeah,
and I didn't know what they were talking about.
Yeah. They have, she's, I feel, on the one hand, I feel bad for her. She's a nice 13-year-old girl whose parents spent a couple of $1,000s to make a music video. It got on the internet, and she became a sensation. Now, she's made hundreds of thousands of dollars from YouTube because it had something like 20 million views on YouTube. And now she's embracing her fame, and she's got a new video in which I presume she sings just as badly because it's still just as auto-tuned as the other one. But, this is welcome to America.
Well, the question is she really a bad singer, or are they using auto-tune as an intentional effect, like Cher did, for example, with, I forget the song she did, but
believe that was
people used it.
That was the first time we ever heard auto-tune, and certainly Cher can mostly sing. But
I think so.
They used it for Cher as an effect. I think it's a safe. I'm guessing. I think it's a safe bet. Rebecca Black is perhaps not the best singer you've ever heard. I'm just guessing here.
Yeah, it's probably a safe guess.
Scott is now the editor or a what is your title? The contributor to?
Online editor.
Online editor of a new site, hometheater.com. The combined.
Actually, not a new site. It's been there for quite a while, but we have merged ultimateavmag.com into it so that I can spend my time on hometheater.com.
Isn't that great?
And so that's what I'm doing. Now, one of the things that I mentioned, that I failed to mention last week, that I wanted to make sure I mentioned this week, is that on hometheater.com, I am also still writing responses, answering reader and listener questions. So I want to make sure everybody understands that.
You haven't given that up.
Stopped. I'm sorry?
You haven't given that up.
I have not given that up. In fact, it's one of the most important functions I do on that site, other than writing reviews of products, which I'm now going to be able to do, which I hadn't been able to do before. But one of the most important things I do in my job is answer reader and listener questions on the site. So you're going to get several of those per week at hometheater.com. And as it happens, I have one ready to go right now.
Fire away then, Gridley. Let's hear it.
Now, this one comes from Sheridan Long, who is the curator and organizer of TEDx in Charleston. So she is a techie, no doubt, but she wonders about home theater in a box. She calls herself an a uniformed female. I think maybe uninformed, I'm not sure. Anyway,
I think she means uniformed, but who knows, right?
Who knows, yeah. She bought an AudioVox, or is thinking about, oh no, she did buy it, an AudioVox home theater in a box for about $150, and wondered if there's a better option at this price point. Found a refurbished Onkyo, for example, for about $300, and wondered if it was worth the extra money. Well, I don't know AudioVox. I mean, I do know that.
That's
company.
an old name, isn't it? I wonder if
very old name.
If it's the same
but
company.
But these days, they have a reputation for being kind of
cheap.
Low end, shall we say? Cheap, shall we say, yes.
I don't mind calling a spade a spade. You know, I think that that's probably the case. And I know it happened. Remember, it happened with Packard Bell. It happened with a lot of old brands that were well known, that they probably got acquired by somebody who said, hey, if we buy the name AudioVox, we could sell cheap stuff for more money.
Right, exactly. So I think that's what they're doing.
Right.
So my recommendation to Sheridan is absolutely, I'm sure I would bet money that it's worth the extra money to get the Onkyo. Because the Onkyo home theater in a box systems are generally very well regarded. Yeah. I really like them a lot.
Yeah.
So that's what I would recommend to her.
Okay.
Now, if we have time for one more, I had a really interesting one from a guy named Jim Painter.
Actually, hold that thought. I'll tell you what.
Okay,
let me do a little commercial. And Jim, what was Jim's questions? So we have something.
His question is, what's the proper way to set a backlight on an LCD TV? All these setup discs don't address this particular issue, and it's a really good question.
I had no idea.
So I'll be glad to tell you.
First of all, what is backlight when it comes to a TV? I know what backlight is on a computer.
On a computer monitor, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the exact same thing. LCD TVs and LCD computer monitors, which are virtually all computer monitors these days, have a backlight. How it works is there's a panel of liquid crystal pixels, and there's a light behind them, and the light shines through them, and each pixel becomes darker or lighter, allowing more or less light to pass through it depending on what's on the image. So you need this backlight. Now, traditionally, the backlight on an LCD panel has been a series of fluorescent bulbs or bars, but lately they've been using LEDs, sometimes behind the panel and sometimes along the edges, which is called edge lighting, and the light is directed by a series of optical panels to be behind the LCDs and come forward. But the question really is, how do you set the backlight? The backlight can always be set to brighter or less bright. And none of the setup discs address this issue. And I thought this was a really great question because they don't address this issue. So here's the answer. First of all, you need to set the basic picture controls of contrast and brightness. And you can do that with the backlight set fairly high, so you can really see what's going on. Once you set the contrast and brightness, you can then set the backlight to taste, essentially, and it won't change what's happening in the contrast or brightness controls. Those will still be correct.
Get your screen looking right, and then you can turn the backlight up and down depending on how overall bright you want it to be. Does that make sense?
Correct. In a room with a lot of light, like windows and so on, you turn it up because you're going to need more light coming off the screen. In a dark room, turn it down. Now, there's a technical spec for how much light you want to come off of a flat panel. It's 30 foot Lamberts, more or less. And foot Lamberts is a measure of how much light's coming off the screen.
Is there a guy named Lambert? There probably is.
It's named after a guy named Lambert, yeah.
Scott Wilkinson is the new online editor for Home Theater Magazine. It's hometheater.com. That's the place to go. One of the things, I mean, I loved Ultimate AV because you would cover ultimate stuff. But let's face it, nobody has the money to buy that stuff. So this is
very few people do.
This is a site that reviews the kind of stuff you and I are going to buy, including Onkyos, including Panasonic plasmas and LCDs, and all the stuff that we have in our house. And
that's
Scott,
right, and the stuff that people are really shopping for.
Scott also does a podcast called The Home Theater Geek Show. You can listen to that tomorrow, 1:30 Pacific, 4:30 Eastern, live.twit.tv. Who's your guest?
Ooh, tomorrow is my second part of my very first two-part episode. I'm bringing back Gene Dolgoff, who talked last week about 3D and why it, in fact, doesn't work very well. This week, holography.
All right. Home Theater Geeks tomorrow at live.twit.tv. Thank you, Scott. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. More of your calls right after this. Well, a good day to you, Leo Laporte here, the tech guy. And it's time to talk about computers, the internet, cell phones, camcorders, MP3 players. Hour number 2 of our Tech Guy show. Phone number is on the website. Everything's on the website, including show notes from our friend James DeRuvo is writing everything down, so you get all the links. We've got a link to our chat room. Always a great time in the chat room. In fact, we've got quite a few people in there. It's been busy since we went into the new studio. I think a lot of people have decided they wanted to participate. Over 1,000 people in chat. Don't be scared. I know it goes by pretty quick, but we've got great moderators. Keep it family friendly. If you want to join us in the chat room, that link is on the website, as is the live video. If you want to see beautiful sky shots of me sitting at a desk, there's nothing like it. All of that is available at techguylabs.com. Techguylabs.com. I can switch cameras all over the whole studio now. It's crazy. Crazy. Let's see. Let's get back to the phones, why don't we? Why not? Tom in San Mateo, listening on the great KGO in San Francisco. Hi, Tom.
Hey, how you doing? My question is probably pretty basic for your normal situation, but what do you recommend for the antivirus software on the computer?
Well, I should say right up front, we have a sponsor, a company that I have recommended for years, even before they were a sponsor, called Nod32. It's from a company called ESET. So ESET.com/Leo, I think, is 30 days free in the U.S. It's the reason I recommend it, and I've recommended it over McAfee and Norton for years, long before they were sponsors, is Norton and McAfee gotten basically in a battle to have the most features. You know, remember the old days of PC Magazine? They'd have these tables with check boxes, and they'd have all the antiviruses and then all the check boxes, and they'd compare them. And it really turned out that people were buying products, not just antiviruses, word processors, and everything else, based on how many boxes were checked. Well, I want the one with 180 features. That's got to be better than the one with 50 features. Well, it turns out that's not the case. Why do you think there's so many? We know, for instance, Microsoft Word, people never use more than 5% of the features. It might be a different set of 5% depending on the user, but there's hundreds and hundreds of features, mostly features you never use. Well, the problem with an antivirus is this is system-level software. It runs all the time in the background. It occupies memory, CPU cycles. So if you have a lot of features, inevitably you become big and bloated, and that's what happened with both of those. So they really slowed down your system. Now, Norton's worked hard, I think, to make it less intrusive, and I think they've done a good job of it. But I looked for something better, 7 years ago when it was just a pig, and I found this Nod32 is a little company out of Czechoslovakia. I'd never heard of them. But it was, Virus Bulletin. I think I found it in the Virus Bulletin because they recommended them over and over again as being, really reliable, really effective. And man, we did benchmark tests on my old TV show in Canada. Nod 32 is the only antivirus that had no impact on system performance.
Wow.
So I've been using it ever since, and I've been very, very happy with it.
Okay, so the company is what, ESET?
ESET.com. Now, let me, to be perfectly fair, Microsoft now makes I think a fairly competent antivirus. It's not maybe the best in the world, but I also should underscore that it's your behavior that's more important than any software. If you go out in the net and you're downloading files from strangers, if you see an antivirus thing pop up saying, "Oh no, you've got 8,000 viruses, click this to download our solution," and you do it, Nod 32, Norton, McAfee, nobody can save you. So you have to protect yourself. The antivirus, the security software is kind of like a second line of defense. And Microsoft, if you don't, there are a lot of cheapskates out there. A lot of people who don't want to pay for an antivirus. Microsoft Security Essentials is the best free one out there. It's Microsoft.com/Security Essentials. And for most people, if you're really careful about what you do online, that's sufficient. Now, if you've got kids using your computer, because you can't herd them, teenagers especially, then you might want something more significant. But I think, to be really fair, the free one, Security Essentials, is fine too. Okay.
Okay, great. I really appreciate
Thanks
the
for the call,
information.
Tom. Yeah,
very much.
It. Yeah, a friend of mine came by the other day. He was all irate because he'd been using I won't name names and I won't name the programs, but he'd been using a program and it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work and wouldn't work. And he actually, I think he sued the company. I mean, he went to court. He got attorneys general, 4 states involved. And then he found out it was his cheap, free antivirus, Avast, that was causing all the problems. And I said, "Oh, well, see, it wasn't their fault. Why'd you sue them?" And I really feel sorry for software companies these days because everybody's running cheap, free software that can break stuff. And security software, more than anything, can break stuff because it is so much a part. It's so knitted into your system. So I really think it's important that, it's a false economy. This poor guy spent hours, not to mention all the state's attorneys general, who spent hours and hours on this case, and it turned out it was just he was using a junky, free antivirus, and that caused the problem, not the company that made the software that wouldn't work. So sometimes it's a false economy to spend no money. $40 a year, come on. For good security, I think that's worth it. And there's no question, by the way, that ESET catches more stuff than Security Essentials. Absolutely the case. But I think you'll find there are security experts, many of them, who don't run any antiviruses. Because they're of the opinion, look, you shouldn't get a virus if you don't do dangerous things. I know, the guy says, "I'm a security expert. I know what not to do on the internet. I don't need an antivirus." For those of us who are not, it probably is prudent, I would think. Mike's on the line from Eastville, California. Hi, Mike. Leo Laporte, the tech guy.
Hi, Leo. My question is, I tried to send my niece a video. She was looking for video cameras. I told her I had the ZI-8, so I tried to send her a sample file.
Yeah, that's a nice little, it's like the old flip cam, only it's from Kodak. Yeah.
But people were telling her flip, but they went out of business.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Cisco spent, I can't remember what it was, a lot of money on that company. And then they killed it a year later.
Yeah. Anyway, I didn't look at the file size. It was 60 megs, and now it's stuck in my outbox, and I can't delete it. Tried a system restore to the day before, but the mail stayed the same.
Yeah, system restore won't, for good reason, won't delete data that you've created. That would be a mistake, right?
Yeah.
You did system restore and all the documents you've been working on since it's gone. So yeah, this is a problem because you've got a large data. What email program are you using?
Outlook.
You can't just go into the sent box and delete that message?
No. I hit Control-D, hit the delete, then I double-clicked on it, and it says, "Cannot open this item. Outlook has already begun transmitting the message."
Ah, because it started sending it.
Yeah.
All right. Let me look here.
That was Friday morning, so it's 2 days, and it's still not gone.
All right. I'm looking at a Outlook-tips.net. Oh, my goodness. Holy cow. No. Oh, my goodness. Really? says, if you attempt to send a message that is too large for your mail server, you may be unable to delete it from Outlook. First, try setting Outlook offline using the File Offline menu. Wait about 5 minutes, then close Outlook and reopen it. That'll give Outlook a few minutes to stop the spooler before you can delete the stuck message. So, do you get that? Take it offline, close it.
How do you take it offline?
In the File Offline menu. Okay, and then if it doesn't work, there's a 9-step process. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll put this article. It's from Outlook-tips.com. I'll put this article in our show notes at techguylabs.com. This is episode 792. James, would you put that in there? And then Mike can look it up. Boy, that just shows you what a junky's piece of software that is.
Yeah.
Holy cow. That's ridiculous. I'll talk about alternatives to sending giant files when we come back. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. 8888. Ask Leo. That's the number. We were talking, I was talking with the chat room about interns. And how every business has interns. It's a great thing. People call me all the time and say, I want to get into technology. I want to get in the computer business. I want to be a programmer. I want to be a IT pro. What a great way to do it. I tell my kids, my own children, this. I think it's a great thing. Work for free at the job you want for a while. Do it. Be an intern. If they have an intern program, that's a great way to do it. Very often, I remember Tech TV, almost all of our interns ended up getting jobs. And here at the Tech Guy Labs, Alex Gumpel, who was 2 years ago became an intern for us right out of college, he's now our most proficient TriCaster switcher. He's one of our best technical directors. And yes, we pay him now. Now he has a job. So we were talking about this idea, and I think internships are actually a great thing, a great idea. But as soon as robots can do the job, I'm hiring robots. Robots don't have to have health care. Robots never take a day off. And I'm sure a robot could make my coffee and get my lunch. Absolutely. Joe in Knoxville, Tennessee. Hi, Joe. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Hey, Joe.
Hello. How you doing?
I am great. What are you up to?
Oh, melting in this hot weather, and congratulations on getting your tech license.
Oh, I'm so excited. Are you a ham, Joe?
Yes, I am. KG4UJC.
KG4UJC.
KG4. Kilo Golf 4 Uniform Juliet Charles.
Wow, I love that. Yeah, I'm not going to give you my call sign yet because I applied for a vanity call sign, which I'll get in a couple of weeks. So I don't want anybody to know the call sign I have right now because I'm not going to ever use it after August 9th.
I have a friend that did that too. He's head of astronomy outreach at University of Tennessee, and he got his ham license, and then he changed his call signs to W2HST for
Hubble Space Telescope.
Planetary Camera 2 Hubble Space Telescope.
See, and not only is that easy to remember, it's nice and short. It's a great call sign. Mine is going to represent my company, TWiT. The one I applied for, and I'm pretty sure I'll get, is W6TWT, Whiskey 6 Tango Whiskey Tango.
And my wife and both my sons are also ham operators, along with my dad.
Isn't that great? If I could get my wife and kids to be ham operators, I could save millions on cell phone bills.
It's lots of fun. I tell you what, there's some stories I could tell you, but I won't burn up the time on the phone with you. But I know a couple of instances where ham radio has come to the rescue. One short one was a few years ago. A 10-year-old, or actually take it back, a 14-year-old kid was on a field trip with his middle school class. He took his ham radio with him that morning. His folks asked him why. He said just in case there was an emergency. And on the field trip, one of his classmates fell in at a waterfall and drowned. And he was the one who radioed to get recovery teams in.
Isn't that?
And cell phones would not reach in the valley where it was at. Yeah. And I wrote a letter to the ARRL, and that young man got an award from the ARRL for his service.
What a great story. And that's exactly it. You know, sometimes people say, well, Leo, come on, you're being a ham. Isn't that old-fashioned? I mean, you got a cell phone that could call anywhere in the world. it's the fun of it. It's a great hobby because you learn so much about propagation and radio, and there's a lot of digital stuff with APRS and Echolink and a D-Star. There's a lot of computer interfacing stuff. But then there's this secondary thing which we really have to remember, which is that in emergencies, ham radio, amateur radio, is often the only form of communication. These cells work great until the infrastructure collapses, and as it did in Louisiana, of course, during Katrina, and Alabama during the tornadoes, and that's when hams really jump in and save the day. So I'm glad people are still becoming hams, and you know what? It's interesting. I thought the hobby must be kind of withering away, but it's not. There are lots of young people getting their ham license. And
it's a lot of fun, and I'm looking
at
APRS digifeeder because I'm into APRS right now.
I just got my little Kenwood handy talkie does APRS, so I set it up.
Also, anyway, my question was, one of my other numerous hobbies, I make Native American style flutes.
Oh, how cool.
Software to start recording some of my playing, and what you would recommend in software and what you would recommend in microphones.
The software is the easy part. Most computers have a recording capability, and if they don't, there's free software called Audacity. It's open source. It's on Windows, Mac, and Linux. That'll do a fine job. And then even if you want something fancier, there's great stuff on all the platforms for recording audio. That's a simple thing to do. The more important issue is, how do I get a good quality sound into the computer? And a lot of people just buy a microphone that they plug into the sound card, and then they hear hiss, buzz, rumble. Sometimes they'll hear those GSM sounds you get from phones. You're a ham, there's a lot of RF out there. A lot of noise out there. And so really, there are better ways to get audio into the computer than just plugging into your sound card. One way that would be a big improvement is to get a USB audio input device. There's a lot of these. They're under $100. In fact, most of them are about $30 or $40. If you want to get an audiophile one, you could spend hundreds of dollars on these. What they are is they're a little DSP chip, a microprocessor. On one end is the analog jack. On the other end is a USB connector. You plug I'm using that actually right now on this system. It's called the Griffin iMic, $30. And it plugs into the Mac of the Mac, and then it has a little audio out to my mixer. If you want to use a USB microphone, that might even be a better solution. You can, of course, get professional microphones and then get an adapter for it. Or you can get microphones that are USB. They effectively have the adapter built in. See, the whole problem is that the flute sounds are analog. I don't even have to tell you this, Joe, because you're a ham. You know all this. There's sine waves going into the microphone, which converts them into electrical impulses. We somehow have to turn those electrical impulses into ones and zeros so the computer can record them. So really the question is, where do you do the conversion? Best to do it outside the computer. You can buy microphones. They're limited. There aren't as many of them that will take it and do it for you. Or you can buy a standard Pro mic, which is going to give you the best possible sound, and then buy an adapter that converts to USB. So those are your kind of three ways of doing it. My recommendation depends on your budget. My recommendation, if your budget is $100 or less, a company called Blue Mic, BLUEMIC.com, makes a lot of USB mics. They're a very good mic company. They make professional mics, but you'll also see they have, if you go to the bluemic.com website, they also have desktop mics that are designed for USB. The best one that they make is the Yeti Pro, but they also have less expensive mics available as well. The Snowball, the Snowflake. These are good, inexpensive mics, not as good as a Pro mic. How much do you want to spend to record your flute?
I'd love to keep it under a couple $100 right now.
I think a Yeti or a Yeti Pro is probably pretty good. They're around a couple $100, and they get good performance. They output USB, so you just plug them into the back of your computer, and then you can use Audacity or any other program to record.
I'll look into that. And one other recommendation: I know you just moved into a new studio, and you're probably tweaking settings and stuff like that. Crank up your audio on especially when you're on hold waiting for.
Oh yeah, that's not me. I'll talk about that in a second. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Hey, look who's here? 2 weeks in a row. We are blessed indeed. Chris Marquardt, our photo guy, is here. Chris is the host of a great podcast called Tips from the Top Floor, tfttf.com. He's also a very accomplished photographer, leads workshops all over the world, including his famous Himalaya treks every summer. Chris, great to talk to you. Oh, let me turn you up. Hold on a second.
How you doing?
I am great. Now, are you still getting echo back? Because I want to make sure you're not getting an echo back.
Let me test that.
Sounds like you are.
Looks like I'm getting this echo back, but I should be able to work through
Take
that.
your headphones off and just read
Yeah,
my
well, then
lips.
I can't hear you.
So Chris is just such a great guy and joins us from Tübingen, Germany, most weeks. What's up this week? I didn't ask you because we were getting set up. I didn't ask you what you wanted to talk about.
Well, I want to talk about photo projects, small projects, because most of us go out and shoot and they look for opportunities, and it's easier if you have a bit of a target that you go out and shoot for in form of maybe a location. It's like on a vacation, you'll probably want to shoot things off that location, but if you do a little project that will help you focus, that will help you get your photography together. And I just finished a workshop here in Germany, and I split the participants into smaller groups of 3, and I let them do a photo project of their own choice, and they went out and they came back with so much great stuff. For example, one group of the participants came up with a project of 3s. So they took pictures of things that they came that they found in 3s. 3 people, 3 garbage cans, 3 chimneys.
Oh, I love that idea.
So
that's so
anything
cool.
in 3s, and it sounded weird in the beginning, but then they presented that, and it ended up being a really compelling thing to watch, a really cool project.
You know what it makes me think of is
much more compelling than if they had presented just random shots.
Yeah. What I think makes me think of is artists often take artificial constraints to their art. I'm thinking of haiku poetry, for instance, where you have a very rigid structure, and there's something about art that it likes to be free form, but within a structure. The sonnet is another example, a very rigid meter that you have to adhere to make a sonnet, and there's something about it that people like. And I guess photographers, I have to include photographers in that group.
Yes, absolutely. And another little project, just a few more examples. One of the groups did a project called Bright and Dark. And looking at that, I would now call it serialized HDR. You know how you can take several shots of the same thing at different exposures, and then you would put them together into an HDR picture that has all the different brightness values?
Right.
Well, but what they did is they showed those, they took those pictures and they showed them in succession, and they set it to music. So you had all different exposures of the same scene, usually very high contrast scenes with, like for example, from within a building with things on the outside, and then they had this succession, this serialized version of that, and they set that to music. It was really awesome to watch. Another group did light painting. You probably tried that at night when you set your camera on a tripod.
Yeah.
You use a remote release. You open the shutter of your camera, and as long as you have to, basically. And then what they did is they wrote words in the air using a flashlight pointed towards the camera. So they collected a different series of words and different series of things that had to do with the workshop, and basically they made this little project, and the way they presented it just was much more coherent than just individual little shots. And those projects don't have to be big. They don't have to be immediate. Some of them can take years. I've seen projects where someone collected doors. So whenever that person came across an interesting door, they took a picture of it. They took a time to take a picture of that and added that to their doors project. And then, let's say one picture of a plant growing out of a sidewalk might be boring, but if you pile 5 of them together into a little project, you will have a pretty compelling thing that's going to come out there.
Have you ever done that? I mean, what kind of little assignments have you given yourself?
I would, for example, go out and shoot things that are blue, or things that have contrast, or things that shoes, interesting shoes. just look around you and watch what kind of shoes people have, and collect those, that kind of stuff. Something very simple, very, very very non-spectacular, but together those things will be compelling as long as you start collecting them and getting more than one of them together.
I just think it's really cool, and I think I really like, I mean, there's the one thing about giving yourself an assignment for the day, and you go out and you take pictures and you come back, like the threes, but I really like a lifelong assignment. And I know many professional photographers, probably you, do this, where, well, I'll give you a good example. One of the photographers we interviewed on our photo podcast, TWiT Photo, Catherine Hall does that with me. It's just a really great show. And what we've done is we've specialized, you're going to be on it, I think, in next month, right? We've specialized in taking photographers, great photographers, and spending a whole hour with them, dissecting their work, talking about how they work, talking about what they do. And we had a guy on, and now I've forgotten his name, but he for his whole, it turns out he does a lot of travel photography, and he always made a point when he'd see a person with their dog, he would take a picture of the person and their dog. And he has a lifetime, you know, decades of people and dog photos, and he's made the most beautiful book. Was it Rick Salmon? I can't remember who it wasn't, and I will find out who it is. But it's just amazing. And so you never know, you might get a coffee table book 20 years from now, something like that. It's a really great thing to do this kind of thing. Hey, Chris, we've got an assignment going on right now. This might be your challenge, everybody, to go out and take a picture with a topic. What is our assignment?
Actually, I'm just looking it up.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
Because it's a week ago, and you know my brain. Busy. Yeah, the assignment is busy.
That's right. So busy could be a lot of things. It could be busy people. Could be a busy photograph with lots of stuff in it. It could be a buzzing bee. It could be many things. So here's how you play our game. And it is not a contest. It is not a competition. Please, no wagering. Go to Flickr.com. If you don't have a Flickr account yet, sign up so that you can have a Flickr account. It's free to do so. In fact, you might have a Flickr account and not even know it. Flickr is owned by Yahoo, so if you have a Yahoo account, you've got a Flickr account. Sign in to your Flickr account, and then do a search. Go to the groups right at the top there, and it says search for a group. Search for a group called Tech Guy, TECHGUY, 2 words. You'll find our Tech Guy group free to join. There are 8,367 members. There are 2,132 photos. Take a picture illustrating our current assignment, Busy. And Orbit Gal will welcome you in. Make that your tag in the picture. Upload it. 1 picture per week. You've got to do it after July 24th. Oh, so okay, so it's from now, and I guess we'll do it through August 24th. And we will pick 3 pictures. Chris will discuss them, give you his professional critique in a couple of weeks on the Tech Guy Show. Make sure you follow Chris Marquardt on the web. His website, CHRISMARQUDT.com. He's just a great photographer, and his podcast, Tips from the Top Floor, is a must-listen. You'll find that at chrismarquardt.com. Along with his workshops, you're coming to the States in August?
I will be there in August in San Francisco, 19th through the 21st, and in Washington, the 13th and the 14th of August, holding those 2 workshops.
So you
will have a lot of fun. There's still some slots open.
Oh, good. Okay. DiscoverTheTopFloor.com is the place to go if you want to find out more about his workshops. Chris, thank you for putting up. What you don't know is that Chris is hearing a horrible echo in his headphones, and I apologize for that. But thank you for putting up with it and joining us, as always, on the Tech Guy Show. You're the greatest, Chris.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, take care. Let us take a break, and when we return, more of your calls. The phone number, 8888-ASK-LEO, 888-827-5536. I am Leo Laporte, the Tech Guy. 8888 Ask Leo. Steve in Phoenix, you're next. Leo Laporte here. Hi, Steve.
Hello, Leo.
Hello. Art Wolf, by the way, thank you. ODB in the chat room. Art Wolf was a photographer. We interviewed his amazing book, which was the result of him going around for years taking pictures of dogs, is called Dogs Make Us Human, a Global Family Album. Thank you, ODB in the chat room, for getting that. Okay, now, Steve, I'm sorry.
Okay, my question is, if I have a Android tablet, I just heard rumors of this. I don't know if it's true or not. That other sites created by Windows and made to, I guess, more compatible with the Explorer browser? Am I limiting myself?
No. So here's the deal. It's always been first of all, there is a standard for what makes a standard web page. It's called HTML. The current version of HTML is version 5. It's a standard that is ratified and endorsed by the World Wide Web Consortium, W3C. Many companies, including Microsoft, Apple, Google, are on the engineering forums, the task forces that determine all of this stuff, like the IETF. However, it is completely possible to design a website that doesn't work on all platforms, because if you do something outside the spec, it won't work. I'll give you a very good example. A lot of people, and this happened because Windows was so widely used in business, a lot of companies designed intranet sites, sites designed for internal use of the company that depended on properties that only Microsoft Windows could provide, things like ActiveX. And in fact, only Internet Explorer could provide. It may not even work in Firefox on Windows. So it's possible to design a site that isn't cross-platform, it is not open, but that's not Android's fault. Android adheres to the W3C standard, as do most browsers. It would be the fault of the site. Now, there's been a big brouhaha because there is a very widespread standard used on the web, you know it, called Flash. If you go to YouTube, Flash is what powers all the videos on YouTube and most other video sites. Apple decided in their infinite wisdom not to support Flash on the iPhone and the iPad. So sites that have Flash don't work on the iPhone and the iPad. Now, Flash is not exactly part of the HTML5 spec, because what happens is it's a plugin. So what happens is a browser gets to some content. It says, look, this isn't HTML. I don't know what it is. Let me see if the operating system has a service, if there's a plugin I can use to display this content. So that's how Flash is supported on most desktop computers. You have to download it. It may not come with the computer. And then when you get to Flash content, the computer launches Flash and plays that video in the web page. The reason Apple left it out, and I think probably correctly so, is A, it's not part of the spec. B, it's very hard on a portable device to play back Flash. It needs a lot of memory, a lot of processor power. So Apple said, look, it's not going to play well on a phone. In fact, what's funny is many Android phones do have Flash, and it plays terribly. It eats up battery life. It doesn't give you a very good frame rate. Unless you have a dual processor Android phone, one of the more modern Android phones, Flash is a bad idea anyway. So Apple didn't make a mistake there, in my opinion, but they did leave out some websites. What's happened, thanks to Apple, is there's been pressure on everybody, including YouTube, to convert their video from Flash to something compatible with HTML5 so it will play on iOS. And by doing so, everybody benefits. It would be a better world if Flash did not exist. Everything you want to do in Flash, you can do in other ways. In fact, I would say that's almost always the case, that whatever non-standard extensions websites use, PDF, Flash, there's lots of them, there are better compatible choices. It's just that these websites, mostly it's a form of laziness.
Leo, isn't there a way I could ask this? If I'm using a tablet using Windows 7, am I less likely to run into sites that I can't use or see, or that's being edited or strained?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because Windows is how most people are visiting the web. Most webs, I mean, look, at this point, a lot of browsing is being done on portable devices, on iPads, on Android phones, more Android phones than Apple, frankly. And so if you're a website, it would only be intelligent, only be prudent, in fact, to make sure it works on all these portable devices. Unfortunately, there are a lot of bad websites, not well designed, not maintained, and you're right, they're guaranteed to work on Windows. Nobody would design a site that didn't work on Windows. If you did that, you'd be saying, I don't want any visitors.
I see.
So yes, but I think it's not necessarily a good idea to get a Windows 7 tablet. There's the Iconia that Acer makes, but Windows 7, and we talked about this yesterday, is not designed for touch. So you make a lot of sacrifices using a Windows-based tablet.
Would it be better to wait for the Windows 8 tablets?
Well, you might be waiting a year.
Yeah. I'm pretty patient.
You know, the best thing to do, Steve, is to look at the sites. I mean, do you know some sites that you're going to be going to? Is that what you're worried about, or it's just
I heard a rumor? Somebody that should know better. He's a computer repair person. He was saying that there's he has both Android and and there's Android. You know, he'll go to the site on with Windows a tablet, but on the Android tablet, it's not the same. You know, it's
well, that's right. That's right. And now there's a couple of solutions. For instance, we're designing a new website for my company, the TWiT.tv site, and we're spending an extra $6,000 on the design to make sure that it is mobile compatible. So that's a lot of money. A small site may not spend that money, and so what you'll get is a site that doesn't look good on a smaller screen, or doesn't, or that uses technologies that aren't available on Android. You have to understand why this is happening. Steve, I don't run into that. I surf all the time on an iPad, and I don't run into that very often.
So it's fairly rare.
It's rare, and I think it's the kind of thing I wouldn't worry about at this point, because the trend is toward mobile, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
More and more. In a year from now, when you buy that Windows 8 tablet, it's got 90% of surfing will be mobile. People are surfing on their phones and on their tablets, and if you're a website with any interest in traffic, you're going to make sure you look good on a tablet. So there's nothing about Android tablets that make them somehow incompatible with the real world. It's vice versa.
I see.
So I would say, in my opinion, you shouldn't wait. I'll be honest with you. If you want a tablet, I would still get an iPad. It's the gold standard. They outsell Android tablets 24-1. That means that if you're a web designer, your first job is to work on an iPad, and your second job is to work on Android. Now, in my opinion, anybody who does a website and is not considering all the platforms that your customers might be using is cuckoo. Well, I mean, you're chasing people away. But it does take more effort. In some cases, it takes more money. I mean, it took $6,000 extra for me to have my web design team, they're great people up in Vancouver, ImageX Media, to make it mobile. So that if you hit twit. And it's not up yet, so don't do it yet, because it's not mobile right now. That doesn't mean it won't work. In fact, on a tablet, it should work just fine. I know it does work fine. Maybe not so well on a smaller screen, on a phone screen. It's just hard to read. You have to zoom in and out and stuff. But when they do a mobile version, what happens is they query the browser that's coming in, and they say, well, who are you? And if the browser says, well, I'm an Android tablet, they give it a site that is designed to look best on the size screen that the Android tablet has. If it says, well, I'm an iPhone, it gives it a site that's designed to look best on an iPhone. I will give you an example. My WordPress site, leoville.com, I use a free WordPress plugin that mobilizes it. So if you go there on the desktop, it'll look one way, and if you go there on an iPhone, it'll be a small screen design site. It'll be designed to be used on a phone. I think that's just good design. The web standards that exist today absolutely support that. There's no reason not to do it, in my opinion. So it's just a question of these guys kind of paying attention. Yeah, Steve, your friend, the repair guy, is right. You can go to sites that just don't work. Flash, for instance, on an Android tablet, it's not ideal. You probably should not visit Flash sites on portable devices, because you can't on an iPhone or an iPad. And if you do on an Android tablet, which has Flash, performance isn't great. So if it's a Flash game, for instance, it's not ideal. Flash video, you could play it, but the speed isn't great. There are a lot of little things like that, but I think in general, I don't think there's any reason not to use a tablet of any kind. That's just my opinion. 8888 Ask Leo, our website, techguylabs.com. Would you go there? If you go there, all the things I mentioned are linked there. We've got a link to our chat room, a link to the video if you want to see our brand new studios. We're streaming video of that. 8888 Ask Leo is the phone number. That's on the website too, techguylabs.com. I am Leo Laporte. Well, a good day to you, Leo Laporte here, the tech guy. And it's time to talk computers, the internet, cell phones, camcorders, MP3 players, all that jazz at 8888 Ask Leo. I am your go-to man for tech stuff, but I'll be honest with you. I certainly don't know everything. I have been doing this for 30 years now. Yes, literally. Well, 20. 20 on the radio. I started writing for computer magazines, Byte and InfoWorld, both of which are long gone, in the late 70s. So that's 30 years, right? 30-some years. Started doing radio call-in radio shows about technology in 1991, my 20th anniversary, sometime around now. I don't know when exactly. I should have kept better track of that. I guess I could go back in the records, look at old pay stubs or something. But by virtue of the fact that I've been here all this time, I think I've acquired a certain amount of knowledge about it. But I'll be perfectly honest. No one person can follow this and keep track of everything that's going on. And for that we have the chat room, also known as my brain externalized. The chat room is at irc.twit.tv. There are over 1,000 people in there. The hardcore fans. And they, if I have a problem that I can't answer, if somebody calls in with something I don't know, pretty much guaranteed that among those 1,000 people, somebody will know the answer to it. It's the hive mind is another word for it. Thank you, Toronto Mario, for supplying that. You see, they're my mind. They are my mind, externalized. 8888, ask Leo's the number. So when you ask me, no, my friend, you don't just ask me. You ask 1,000 people who are all in my brain. Rob, Tarzana, Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Hi. You saw the end of the cottage. The old Tech Guy Labs gone. Yeah. Don't I have a great team? I have so many wonderful people here. Thank you. I really should pay them. Okay.
The question that I called about by asking, how long do you believe a DVD movie that I buy at the store, like an authorized, like I buy a studio-made movie, how long is that disc going to last for?
Yeah, nobody really knows. I'll tell you a couple of the issues with a DVD movie. And it's unpredictable. So the way any optical media works, a DVD or a CD, is you've got a few layers on it. You've got the, on the one side, there's the label side. That's got paint on it. And then on the inside of the paint, there's a reflective layer. And that's really important because if you flip it over and you see the rainbow-colored DVD side, that's actually clear polycarbonate. It's a clear plastic layer underneath which, on a mass-produced DVD, a commercial DVD, there's a layer of pits and valleys. And then behind the pits and valleys, there's the reflective layer. The laser goes along and reads the pits and valleys as ones and zeros. That's how we get the digital information into the player. I almost said computer, and really, truthfully, even a Blu-ray DVD player or a standalone DVD player is really a computer. The laser sends back ones and zeros, and it turns it into video. But so what can go wrong on this? Well, of course, if you scratch the paint, and anybody's ever done that on a CD or DVD, you have the possibility of scratching the reflective layer, and if you do that, that scratch can actually make the thing unplayable. So we talk a lot about scratches on the reflective side, and those can get in the way because the laser can't read through them. But scratches on the paint side can also injure the reflective layer. Now, presuming that you're going to handle this well, there are no scratches on it, then the other thing that can go wrong is, believe it or not, and this has happened on a poorly made DVD, you can have oxidation of the reflective layer. It's a metallic layer, and it can actually rust. So if it oxidizes, of course, same problem. Laser's not going to bounce light off of it, and it's not going to be able to read the pits and valleys. So that, I think, is the biggest threat to DVDs. Nobody really knows how long they're going to last. I've heard stories about a German newspaper sticking a bunch of DVDs in a file cabinet, not touching them for 5 years, taking them out, and oh my gosh, they don't play anymore. That's probably due to oxidation of the reflective layer, but it's just unpredictable. I think on a well-made DVD, they're going to last a longer than you really care.
Well, are you familiar with Millenniata?
No, what's that?
Apparently, and again, if this product is legitimate, it's like nirvana for those of us that are concerned about the lack of a permanent way to preserve our data. And of course, I've listened to you for years talk about discs that we burn that probably won't last, and et cetera. But I just learned about a device. It's called an M-writer.
See, this is the interesting issue. It's not, certainly there's the issue of the media wearing out, but there's a much larger issue. How, do you still have a zip drive? Do you have an orb? Are you going to have a DVD player in 20 years? Probably not. So even if this DVD is perfect, how are you going to play it? So that's interesting. So tell me about the M-Writer. I'm looking at it right now. It says permanent data archiving.
Yeah, by Milleniata, M-I-L-L-E.
And what is it? What is the magic that they claim?
The magic is that it claims it actually engraves the disc, and the disc itself doesn't oxidize, and it lasts for hundreds of years, they claim.
Yeah, but how about the Milleniata player? How long does that last?
Well, apparently these things are backwards compatible. They will play in a standard DVD player.
Well, I guess that's my point, Rob. There is the issue of how long does a media last. Maybe they've solved that. Certainly something that is carved into the player is going to last longer than a standard DVD. But the bigger issue is, and it's just, you have zip disks that still work fine. Do you have a zip drive? Probably not. And that's only 10 years old technology. So that's really the bigger issue. And I do worry a little bit how long DVDs are going to be around. So the idea is that you have a special writer. How much is the writer, just out of curiosity?
A couple $100, 150 to 200.
That's not bad. And the discs are what?
Probably about $15 a piece, $10 a piece.
And as long as you can read, I like it that you can read it in a regular DVD player. Have you tried it? Does it actually work?
No, I haven't. That's why I called. I wanted to see.
All right, I guess that means I have to buy one of these.
Yeah.
They have one review on Amazon. One review. And it's probably, when I see one review, that tells me it's probably the guy who made it, right? Let's see. Milleniata Starter Kit includes the M-Writer and a 25-disc pack for $290 on Amazon.com. But again, only one review really makes me nervous. This review does look like it's from the company. It says things like, U.S. military testing proves these discs will last. Well, who's going to know that except the guy who made the product? So I'm a little suspicious of this review here. All right, let me see if let me ask my brain. Hey, brain, anybody use the Milleniata in there?
It seems like either that or solid-state hard drives are our only way to save data permanently. No.
Well, that's actually what I do. If I want to save something permanently, I do a couple of things. One is I do put it on a hard drive, and then then it behooves you to check that hard drive every year, make sure the data's there. You never have just one copy though, so you maybe have it on a couple of hard drives. And then I also store it in the cloud because the storage on the internet is in effect permanent in the sense that, of course, it's stored on a hard drive, really. We know that. It's stored in some network operations center on a hard drive. But if you're storing it with a company like, let's say, Amazon, that we expect to be around for a while, Amazon will do the job to make sure that whatever that storage is, you don't have to know about it, will be kept up to date, maintained, and backed up. So I think Milleniata is an interesting idea. I'll tell you what, Rob, I will get one. I'll get one, and I'll review it for you. My main concern is I would really want to make sure it was at least DVD compatible so that you could at least read it in the drive you've got. I don't know how we would verify the discs would last forever. Call me back in 100 years. Maybe that's the solution. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Hey, let me talk to you a little bit about Netflix.com. Here's somewhere you could spend your money. Who needs discs anymore? $7.99 a month, and you could stream all these great movies from Netflix.com. Let's see. I watched a movie last night. It's great. My wife and I sat down. We said we want to watch something. And all I did is I have a Roku box. You could do this on an Xbox, a PlayStation 3, a Nintendo Wii, an iPad, an iPhone. Of course, Jennifer and I are not going to watch a movie on an iPhone. We put it on the big screen. I put it on my 60-inch, beautiful Kuro TV via the Roku HDMI. It looks gorgeous. And then we picked a movie, and we watched it. And it was okay. It was good. It wasn't great. It was good. Then I started watching another movie, How to Succeed and Get Ahead in Advertising. Oh, boy, that was weird. Oh, was that weird. But that's the beauty of this. You find Memento. Wasn't that a great movie? I'd like to see that again. All of these movies are movies that I watched on DVD from Netflix that are now on Netflix streaming. These are great movies. Great movies. $7.99 a month. Oh, did you ever see that, When We Were Kings? This is an amazing documentary of the 1975 Ali Foreman fight, the Rumble in the Jungle. Wow, what a great the documentaries on here are fantastic. And I like that because documentaries, you know, I often miss. They don't come to the movie theater. Oh, Buena Vista Social Club, another great documentary. See what I'm saying? This is what I do every night. I browse through this, and I pick a movie or a TV show. They've got Mad Men, Battlestar Galactica, every single Star Trek series, and all this for $7.99 a month. Now, I know I'm preaching to the converted, right? Y'all have Netflix. What am I even trying to sell you? I know y'all have Netflix. How about this? Because we want to make a little money on this. This is how we're supporting the podcast now. We have an ad or two on the podcast. It's not a big deal, right? Go to netflix.com/techguy. Or better yet, tell your friends. 30 days free of streaming. Now, this is a great way to get them hooked. My mom just called me because I give her, you know, Netflix, the disc thing every year. And because they raised the prices, she said, well, my birthday's not till January, but it's going to run out in October. I said, well, Mom, do you ever use the disc? She said, no. I said, oh, good news, $7.99. It'll go for another 6 months. She's just going to use the streaming. Right, Mom? It's amazing. Netflix.com/techguy. Tell your mom or grandma. And by the way, this is a great gift. And cheap? That's like less than $100 for a year. You get this a great gift to give Mom for Christmas or a birthday or Hanukkah or what, you know. But first, get them started. Netflix.com/techguy. We get some benefit out of that if you send them there. So please do. Netflix.com/techguy. I thank you for your support. I feel like I'm at a stadium. That's what they say. Play this at the ball game all the time, right? Leo Laporte. Yeah, the tech guy. 8888. Ask Leo. So in the chat room, we were talking about this media with Rob from Tarzana, this engraved media. The chat room said, don't buy that. Don't buy that. Terrible idea. I could think of a lot of ways to preserve stuff. You know, it's a really interesting question. In fact, if, you know, I talk to librarians all the time because librarians, one would think, you know, that they'd be out of work. But no, what library science has always been is information science. And one of the things librarians think about a lot is archival storage, you know, preserving stuff forever. And this is like the big thing that they deal with nowadays, you know. Books are not, if you think about it, a very good way to store stuff. They're probably better than DVDs, but not much. After, you know, a few decades, they start to yellow, crumble, and go away. What is the material that's lasted the longest? Well, stone engravings, that's a good start. Engrave it on a piece of stone, really deep. Or papyrus, right? The Egyptians would take this papyrus reed, mush it up, flatten it out, and write on it. We've got papyri from thousands of years ago. That survived. Think about an archaeologist 1,000 years from now who digs up a pile of these silvery discs. I don't care if it's the ones that are engraved or not. What's he going to do with those? Wow, they sure had a lot of them. Many of them said AOL, free membership. What does that mean? AOL, what was this AOL? Some magical society, no doubt. A priesthood followed by many of the 20th century. Well, how else can we explain these silver medallions that we're finding everywhere in the landfill? It must have been some sort of costuming that this AOL priesthood wore. That's what they're going to say. So what we hope is that you store it somewhere and it's periodically rejuvenated or renewed. You know, if you had, I keep bringing up zip disks. I don't mean to make fun of them, but I have a lot of them, and I don't have a zip drive anymore. There was worse stuff. Remember the Orb? That was what was that? A 5? It was big. It was 100 megabytes, 5 gigabytes, I think it was. But nobody had an Orb drive anymore. What would you do with that? At least with optical media, I think it could be reverse engineered. The problem with a hard drive is, you know, it's magnetic states on a magnetic material. That's not going to last very long. Optical media, if it's well preserved, we can see with a microscope pits and grooves, pits and bumps. So it kind of maybe makes sense that 1,000 years from now somebody could reverse engineer that, say, well, look what I've discovered on this AOL disk that the priesthood wore. There's magical binary code. something called AOL.exe. No, we don't know what it does. We have nothing that can run it, but it must mean something. See, that's the problem. Then you have to turn it into a program. They don't have any PCs 1,000 years from now. They're all using Macs. 88. I'm going to get the email now. 8888. Ask Leo. Rob in Irvine. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Hi, Rob.
Hi, Leo. You got to help me.
Okay.
My son Brandon, who's listening downstairs, is driving me crazy with a perplexing problem. He's got a Nintendo DSi, and he wants to connect to the Internet. I get this question every couple of weeks about trying to connect to the Internet, and it only has WEP encryption.
Can you believe this? Can I ask the chat room, does the 3DS, at least, the new Nintendo, does that at least support WEP? I mean, WPA? I know exactly where you're going with, Rob, because this, for some reason, Nintendo only built this very old, broken encryption protocol into the Nintendo DS, and I understand you don't want your son to get on your network because you don't want to use WEP.
Right, and so I'm trying to figure out the most secure way or the most secure solution to give him what he wants and protect my network. I know if I use WEP, like on a guest account or a different subnet.
That's what you need to do, is do a guest account.
Yeah, but then, people would be able to still pilfer my Internet access.
Well, it depends on the router. There are routers, many of them now, that allow you to have kind of a splintered off guest account that doesn't have access to the network. You're right, they could use your Internet. That's an interesting question. Wouldn't it be cool if we could turn WEP on that? In that case, it's kind of, first of all, it takes some effort to crack WEP. A hacker has to have a program called Cane Enable. He has to sit on your curb, and he has to grab the packets, analyze them, and then crack it. And what does he get? Well, now he gets some Internet access. It doesn't seem worth it. He'd probably go down the street to find somebody named Linksys.
Do you think there's a way to limit the access for that WEP account to just a Nintendo site?
Yes, you could MAC address. Oh, you mean for outbound?
Right, so that if they were trying to use the access, all they'd get is Nintendo all day.
That's a great idea. Would that satisfy your son? Is that all he wants it for?
That's what he wants it for. I've used like a Mac that we have in the house and used it as an ad hoc network for him to do it, but it's still open. So I just want to make sure I secure my network.
I have to tell you that the same hacker who can crack WEP, say that fast,
right,
can also crack MAC address filtering. But I understand what you're saying is if you have it one way so that it only goes to one site. Yeah, I don't. That's called access control.
Right.
And you can. Yeah. Oh, even better. OpenDNS will do that.
Oh.
So I use OpenDNS anyway as my DNS provider instead of using the Internet Service Provider's DNS. DNS is the phone book, the domain name system. When you enter in Nintendo.com, you don't actually go to Nintendo.com. You go to a domain name server which says, oh, Nintendo.com. That equals 268.32.7.4. It gets a number, just like the phone book. And then the browser goes to that number. So that DNS provider usually is provided by your Internet Service Provider, but you can use anybody you want. You just put that in your router settings. OpenDNS is great. They're among the fastest. They have great security, and they have access control built in. So if you go to OpenDNS.com, and this is a free service, you use those DNS addresses in your router. Say, for this, don't use the Internet Service Provider. Use OpenDNS. And then you need the IP address of your son's Nintendo DS. So that probably moves around, but if it's on guest, you probably will have a static address, and that you say on that address can only go to Nintendo.com, and OpenDNS will do that for you. It's called whitelisting, and it's a really good solution.
Network.
Say again?
Will the OpenDNS only serve as a DNS server for that subnet?
You could do that. I use it for my whole home because it gives you also, if you got kids, it's great. It gives you other filtering and other capabilities. It also filters out phishing scams. I like OpenDNS. I think it's a better DNS provider than your Internet Service Providers.
Okay, but then if someone else outside and trying to use my Internet access, I guess I'm not sure how I'd lock it to that IP address, or would I just only allow access to that IP address?
Yeah. You say only this IP address can use it. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, because you do need to do it by IP address. You're right.
I wish they made like a USB to Ethernet adapter or something like that. I'd have them plug into the wall, but they don't offer that for the DS.
I think if you do MAC address, well, now you got a good puzzle, Rob. Let me think on this. We got to take a break anyway. Maybe I can come up with an answer for you. Maybe the chat room can. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Every time I do that, my wife, when I get home after the show, says, "Why do you spell out Leo? Don't you think everyone knows how to spell Leo?" Well, you never know. I remember when I worked at KFI in Los Angeles, the great 50,000-watt blowtorch of Southern California. Somebody once said, "Well, how do you spell KFI?" So I spell it out. You never know. Nintendo DS. This is interesting. Nintendo's DSi does support WPA, but the games don't. Isn't that weird? So and this it's a very common question I get from a lot of parents whose kids have these little Nintendo portable gaming things. They're very, very popular. I love them. It's great. But they don't support modern Wi-Fi encryption. And probably as you have heard me say, if you have Wi-Fi, the only thing to do, the only security thing you need to do, one that is both sufficient and complete, is turn on WPA2, if you can, is the best. WPA2 encryption using AES. That is the most secure solution. And it's all you need to do. MAC address filtering, SSID hiding, all the other kind of silly things that people do to protect themselves on wireless networking are not necessary. All you need is WPA2. Unfortunately, the previous version of this encryption, WEP, was badly designed, is easily broken, takes a hacker 60 seconds to crack it on the curb, so it's as if you don't have it. Now, admittedly, if that's the only thing your devices can do, it's highly unlikely that your neighbor is going to be cracking your network with, WEP encryption. I mean, how many hackers are sitting out front on the curb trying to get into your system? WEP is enough to resist the casual Wi-Fi borrower. It's better than nothing, but WPA2 if you can do it. And I understand maybe this guy's reluctance to turn on WEP, to use WEP, because it does make the whole network open. So there are other solutions, some of them involving 2 or 3 routers to create a special router just for the Nintendo DS. Our chat room reminded me that you can, on some routers, replace the firmware. This is a fun project if you don't mind bricking your router by accident at some point. But I've done it. It's great. There's something called DDWRT. There's also Tomato. These are custom firmware that people have written, hackers have written for routers, wireless routers, that add great capabilities. DDWRT, for instance, which works on many, not all, Linksys routers, will allow you to have guest networks that only allow a certain IP address and all the things that this guy wanted to do. But I hate to say to this guy, well, no problem. You just take your router and you modify the firmware and you'll be set. That's probably not something most people want to do. The guest SSID is probably a good idea. You're right. Somebody could then borrow your internet. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, I think security by obscurity is probably your best solution. Continue to use WPA. Have a guest ID. Maybe make that guest ID hidden. Use SSID hiding. That way your neighbors won't see it floating around. It's true that a hacker driving by who's really looking for open access spots can run a tool that will see even invisible Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi that doesn't broadcast its name. That's still easy to see. But how many hackers are driving around looking for your kid's Nintendo DS, after all? Aaron is in Mesa, Arizona. He's our next caller. Hi, Aaron. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. I am in a fine fettle. Yes, I moved from Petaluma to Fine Fettle, California. Oh, it's good to talk to you once again, Aaron. Did you move to Mesa? Well, there you go. How do you like it?
Degrees hotter. than in Phoenix, so I wanted to come here and get the full brunt.
Just glad you're not living in Manhattan and New York anymore.
Man,
it was like 110. It was Arizona weather.
And I can't. No worse than Arizona weather because of the humidity.
Because it's humid, that's right.
I mean, I used to live in New Orleans. Thank you, all you tech people, for caring. But I used to live in New Orleans, and
muggy.
98-degree summer day in New Orleans was worse than this.
Oh yeah.
Just because you can't run from humidity.
Right.
It doesn't. Nothing helps. This heat is just like people are just bursting into flames. It's just you get out of the car. It's like,
I know. I had a girlfriend in Phoenix many years ago when I was in college, and I went to stay with her. And you just don't go outside when it's in the summertime. It was 110 degrees. Of course, it was fine. She was cute. I didn't mind staying inside. So.
It works out pretty well because, in one way, because as I told my son who's looking to buy a grill, I said, wait till like September. Why? I said, because that's the end of grilling season to the world, and we get the cheap prices.
Aaron, do you have a computer question for me?
Yes, the other computer question is, so the oddest thing started happening, literally just bam. This morning, I saw this man waving and jumping on my screen. No.
That's me. Turn off your TV, Aaron.
I don't think the TV is on, but okay. You look like Joffrey Peterson from a TV show, a robot sidekick. And for some reason, when I'm typing on my keyboard, using Vista, anytime I hit the space bar, it pops up a separate Chrome window and starts typing in there. And like
that's annoying.
Every single time I hit space, every time. I've closed it down, I've rebooted it.
So you're in a different window. Your window, what you call the window that you're typing in is the window that has focus, or the topmost window. Another window has focus, not Chrome.
I have a window that I have two windows up. One is the chat room down below, and one is seeing you.
And when you hit spacebar, well, now the one seeing me is a browser window.
It's a browser window, yes, using Chrome.
But you're not in that window. You're in a different window.
Exactly.
That's not a Chrome window?
I'm actually using, if I typed right now, I would be typing in the input in the chat window.
Okay, so you have your chat screen up.
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to type in there, and every time you hit the space bar, Chrome pops up, and you start typing in the browser.
Exactly.
That doesn't sound right.
I've never come across that.
You don't have a stuck function key or something, do you?
A function key?
Well, sometimes people map function keys to their browser.
I mean, I have function keys. I don't use them.
One has function keys almost always. You know, Aaron, I don't know, but what I would say is you have a keyboard, some sort of keyboard malfunction, probably a stuck key. You know, I don't know if maybe when you hit the space bar, it's seeing it as control space or some sort of thing. That's very odd. What I would try is, I presume you've rebooted. I would try another keyboard, plug in a different keyboard, and see if the same behavior happens. I would guess that a key is stuck. Maybe your Windows key? Aaron's in the chat room. Chat room has a lot of solutions for you, Aaron, so maybe try them. Including Erroneous in the chat room, who is in fact Erroneous, who says, oh, just format and reinstall. I love that advice, because almost always when you call for tech support, the first thing they say is, well, can you format the drive and reinstall Windows for us? The reason they do that, by the way, is because computers are hideously complex, and made all the more so by all the additional software that you've installed over the last year. And it's very difficult for me or any other tech to support you, because we don't know what's running in the background. I mentioned last hour my friend who was using VidBlaster. It wouldn't work. He couldn't figure out why it wouldn't work. Turned out it was his antivirus interfering with it. That's the kind of thing that drives tech support nuts. That's why they make you format and reinstall. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Last segment, the show for the week. But a reminder, we keep on going. Oh my, do we keep on going. I didn't build this $1 million studio for this show alone. We've got lots of shows still to come, including the big show This Week in Tech, which is coming up in about an hour. It's all at TWiT, twit.tv. Stands for This Week in Tech. What did you think? Come. We have shows every day of the week, Monday through Friday. You can watch them all at live.twit.tv or download them after the fact at twit.tv. A lot of stuff if you're a geek. A lot of techie stuff. Did we solve Aaron's problem? Did the chat room? Did you guys come up with a good solution for Aaron? It's like his keyboard got remapped or something got stuck or mysterious keyboard behavior. It's one of my favorite problems. Joe in Gilbert, Arizona. Good to talk to you. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Hi, Joe.
Hi, how you doing, Leo?
Oh, great. How are you?
Good, good. I love the show and first time caller.
Well, it's about time. I've been waiting.
Yes, yes.
Finally.
My question is, I have a phone question. I'm a real estate agent, and I've always had a BlackBerry because that's what everybody, in terms of business says you should have in terms of a phone.
A lot of realtors have BlackBerries. It's very common.
Yeah. I'd like to get into the smartphone realm though, and I know there's a lot of different phones out there. I personally have T-Mobile as my service provider, and
the BlackBerry guys are going to kill you for calling their phone not a smartphone. It's the original smartphone.
Yeah, I guess. But now with
doesn't feel so smart, does it? That's why RIM is in trouble. The company that makes them, they've got they're just dying on the vine because people are buying iPhones and Android phones.
Yeah. Well, that's my question. Is I don't know. I mean, like I said, I don't know if I should switch my service provider because I do like them and go with an iPhone or go with the two phones that I have been kind of researching in terms of the Androids have been the Galaxy and then the HTC.
So your carrier is T-Mobile?
Yeah, T-Mobile.
Yeah, I have a T-Mobile. I use a T-Mobile G2X that I love. That's made by LG. T-Mobile has a lot of very good Android phones because Google used them for a long time for their kind of standard phone. The Nexus, first the Nexus 1 and then the Nexus S. My favorite, you can't buy it in the U.S. yet, but you can buy it online, unlocked, is the Nexus or the Galaxy 2S, which is a big 4.3-inch screen, beautiful screen, really nice phone. I would say that I know the iPhone is the gold standard in smartphones, and for a lot of people, the iPhone's the right choice, including every member of my family. But I'm an Android fan. I really am. And I think what you can do with Android, there's so much more flexibility. The question, Joe, is how much of a geek are you? Do you like messing with your phone or not?
I like the bells and whistles. In terms of going into the phone and fiddling around with it, with all the settings and whatnot. I'm not too much.
Because that's one of the things you do a lot with Android phones. The iPhone is just a grid of icons on the screen, and you pick the icon that you want, and that's it. Those are the apps. But on the Android, now, and by the way, there are more apps. There's more than 250,000 apps on the iPhone. There's only several 100,000 on the Android. Look, any more than 10,000 is probably enough. But Android phones, you can do so much more. You've got widgets. You can have moving live desktop wallpaper. I have the weather forecast is actually my desktop wallpaper. You can have players and all sorts of stuff. So it's much more like a computer that you can actually program and do stuff with than the iPhone, which is Apple has a very narrow point of view. They want to control it very tightly, and it is more controlled. Now, some people prefer that because there's not as many surprises.
Yeah. So with the business, though, the business side of things,
let me ask you this. Probably because you have a BlackBerry, I would guess that email is kind of really important to you.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's one advantage that the BlackBerry had. Not only was it designed around email, but it had many of them have built-in keyboards, which make it a lot easier to send email. It's pretty typical on a smartphone to have an on-screen keyboard, which you may not be too big of a fan of. That may not be your choice of how to do stuff.
Well, I've tried it. One of my good friends has an iPhone, and the keyboard on the screen. It's not. He said it does take a little bit of getting used to, but once you do, it's not really a big deal. And I've heard that probably from everybody I have spoken to. So I don't I mean, I don't think that would be a big concern of mine.
It's going to take some getting used to. You're right. That was one of the insights that Apple had, is that a physical keyboard takes a lot of space and really doesn't deliver in the same way that, you could do stuff with an on-screen keyboard. For instance, predict what's coming up. Well, I guess you could do that with a BlackBerry keyboard. I just think that you get used to on-screen. It's not as easy to type out a message, but you do get used to it. I think it's so much smaller because of it. You can have a thinner phone. You don't have a slide-out keyboard. If I were you, I would take a look at the Nexus S, or I'm sorry, the Galaxy S. I think that's a very nice phone. Actually, it is called the Nexus, isn't it, on T-Mobile? I think that the Incredible is great. I'm a big fan, and this is a T-Mobile phone, of the G2X. This is dual core, so it has a lot of speed and power. And it's kind of, the only issue with it is right now they aren't on the latest version of Android. You really want to look for something that's running Gingerbread if you can get it. T-Mobile says that they will update the G2X to Android, so I'm hopeful that'll happen soon.
What about I've read a lot about the Sensation. Is that one of the new phones?
The HTC Sensation is incredible. I shouldn't say incredible because that's another phone. It's marvelous. I love the Sensation. So that's another good choice. See, this is the beauty of it. With the iPhone, it's the iPhone or the iPhone. With the Android phones, you have a lot of choices. Now, that's sometimes people would prefer a simpler choice with, and if you're that kind of person that wants Apple to tell you what to do, then that's not a bad choice. Nothing wrong with an iPhone. They're great phones. If you could wait, I would wait till September. I'm pretty sure we're going to have a new iPhone in September.
Yeah.
So if you want to compare apples to Androids, then you might want to wait till September. But, I'll be honest. Yeah, the HTC Sensation, what a great phone. The G2X, great phone. There are some really nice phones available from T-Mobile for Android.
Yeah,
so that's my strong preference. There's more tweaking with it. There's more messing around with it. It's not as straightforward, but on the other hand, that means you can do more with it.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like I'm probably going to lean a little bit more towards the Androids as well.
Boy, I'm such a fan of the Android phones. I really think that they're well made. They're the software is very flexible. There's plenty of apps. It's become such a popular platform now that all the big guys are making Android software. So that's I'm nervous about recommending it because I do know a lot of people who said, no, I've tried Android. Bill Handel, the morning man at KFI, I foolishly told him to get a Droid X. He hated it. He ended up getting an iPhone. So it's not for everybody, but if you're the kind of person who wants a lot of capability, my recommendation. Hey, let me quickly, before we get too far along here, remind you about the best antivirus. I talked about it last hour. Ever for Windows and now for Mac. I'm talking about ESET, ESET.com. They're not 32 for Windows. It's just the one. It's just the one. It's incredible. And now cybersecurity for the Mac from ESET. I love it because on the Mac side, not only is it the same fast, powerful antivirus engine, it's got a whole educational component. And frankly, we Mac users, we've been living large, sitting pretty for a long time. We kind of need to be reminded about what to do and what not to do online. And that educational component's fantastic. A good one for your friends and family who have Macs and maybe need a little help protecting themselves. You could try it for free. Go to ESET.com/Mac in the U.S. to try it on the Mac side. If you're a Windows user in the U.S., ESET.com/Leo. And don't forget to follow ESET on Facebook. Just like them, it's ESET USA on Facebook. Or call 866-935-ESET. If you use Windows or Mac, you need ESET. Well, the time has come, my friends, to say goodbye to all our family, but I thank you for joining me. Invite you to come back next week. We'll talk more about high tech. In the meanwhile, everything I've talked about today, including links to our chat room, our video, downloadable versions of this show from 791 previous episodes, are all at the website, techguylabs.com. We may have moved our studio, but we didn't move the website, and we certainly didn't move the show. So come back again next week and join me as we talk about this wacky, wild world of tech. techguylabs.com. Have a great geek week. I'm Leo Laporte, the Tech Guy. We'll see you next week.